Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Do More with Less, Efficiently Manage Your Government's Finances with Microsoft Dynamics 365. In this session, we'll explore the functionality and user interface of Microsoft Dynamics 365's ERP solution. My name is Petra Dennison, Marketing Manager at AKA Enterprise Solutions, and I'll be moderating this session. Before we get started, I wanted to run through a couple of housekeeping notes. To optimize the viewing quality of the presentation, please close any programs you have running besides GoToWebinar. If you experience any visual or audio issues, please contact GoTo directly at care.citrixonline.com/GoToWebinar/contact us. It's right there on the screen. Also, I just want to point out the questions panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Using this functionality, you can submit questions at any time during the presentation, and we'll address as many as possible during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. If we don't get to your question, we'll follow up with you after the call. The webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be sent to you within the next few business days. Today's session will be presented by Shirley Adams, Solution Architect here at AKA Enterprise Solutions. Shirley serves in a pre-sales implementation architect capacity to assist clients in leveraging Microsoft solutions. Now I'd like to hand it off to Shirley.
Hello everyone, how are you today? I am going to talk about the Dynamics for 365 for operations. So let's talk about what it is. If you look at the next page, we can talk about where it fits in the application. So Microsoft Dynamics for Operations is part of a global suite of applications that Microsoft is offering. So most of you are familiar with Office 365. And maybe you're familiar with Power BI or some of the other applications. But Microsoft is offering a full suite that includes sales, field service, marketing, and this little box called Operations. So Operations actually integrates with everything here and is in fact a lot more. So on the next slide, we're going to talk about what it is. So Dynamics 365 for Operations is a very long name for what was previously known as Dynamics AX and even Exacta. So a company named DamGuard wrote the application initially, and it was acquired by Microsoft in July of 2002, so 15 years ago. Since then, it's expanded considerably and been rewritten, obviously, to a more modern and integrated interface with the latest version. Microsoft has always focused on public sector as an important part of its user base and in fact added additional functionality for public sector users in the application a few years ago. So let's take a closer look at the operations wheel here. If we start with the orange at the top left, we have budget planning. Budget planning and formulation is the complete budget planning process that all state and local governments go through, which usually includes an initial request, a preliminary budget, and then finally an adopted budget. This budget is then used for budget management, which controls expenditures based on the organizational requirements. Going around the wheel, we also have financial management, which includes the standard cash and bank management, from cash in and out for AP and AR to automated reconciliation. After that is procurement and sourcing. This includes the bid, contract, requisition, and purchase order processing, and of course includes encumbrance processing for state and local governments as well. As you may know, Microsoft recently acquired LinkedIn, and as part of that initiative, there has been a considerable amount of focus on the HR management area. In fact, it is going to be offered as a standalone application in addition to being part of this Dynamics operations wheel. I believe this was announced publicly within the last week or two. We have also got, if we continue around, the green multi-year project accounting and grants management. This manages your federal and state grants for money received. And then next is the standard inventory tracking and fixed asset management. And finally, we have the accounts management and revenue part of the application, which is standard within the operations suite. So as part of research partner, Nucleus Research checked out all the ERP solutions, and Microsoft's heavy investment into this application shows that they're a top leader now, and this was actually issued last year, and it shows that Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Operations is continuing its march forward and upward. So you can see that there's a couple of points about being in the news. It shows that people are paying attention. and I'm excited to be working with the Dynamics 365 app and the future that it shows. So last but not least, let's start with the technology demonstration, and I'm going to go ahead and take over the PowerPoint and the show, and we're going to show the application. Great. Okay, so this is the Dynamics 365 for Operations application, and this is the home page. So you can see I have the word operations at the top. I also have these things in the middle called workspaces, and these workspaces are for users and what they're typically processing on a daily basis. So if I'm a project manager, I might go into project management. If I'm generally doing just general entries, I'm going to go to general journal processing. So I'm going to actually open up Ledger, Budget, and Forecast because everybody wants to know where they're at in their budget, especially in the government area. So right here we have on the left things called tiles. These tiles are generally a query. So I have 8 draft budget register entries, and if I click on it, it'll actually open that area and let me see what those entries are. I can see if any of them are assigned to me via the workflow process, or I can see if there's any assigned to others currently. As we move to the right in this workspace, I have some other queries, some lists that I can look at. So I can see what's over expense threshold. I can actually see the draft budget register entries. And I can scroll through on the left and see all the additional information around the budget and where we are at this point. So purchase orders over budget, any pending budget requests, etc. So here we have some things that are over budget. Now, in a government, this of course should never happen. But in this case, in this demo environment, we have some items that are actually over budget. So what I've done is I've said, okay, I've configured my workspace, and I've said that I want to see anything that's 10% over budget. If I want to see more or less, I can change this. And I can also change the view of the data that I'm looking at. So on the screen, I have 3 different segments, we call them in Dynamics. They are actually multi-use segments. So, for example, the first segment is fund. Everyone is going to have a fund that's in a government. And then we have division and object class. And the general rule is that anything that you need to report on, you'll create a dimension for it. So I'm going to use the drop-down, and I'm going to show it on a different view. So let's say I just want to see fund and main account. But you can see that I can look at my data in any way. So let's say right here I've got division, I've got fund and then division. The one above I happen to have division and fund. So once I have the data in the system, all I have to do is select the area that I want to view my data, and I can slice and dice in any way. So I'm just going to look, I really only care about the higher level, so I'm going to go to fund and main account. I'm going to click OK, and then it's going to change my screen to only show fund and main account, and then aggregate the values here. At any point in time, I can actually click on the percent used, or any of these columns, and I can say I want to sort by smallest to largest. I can also change my threshold here. Let's say that I want to sort from the largest because I want to show the biggest offender here at the top. So I have these guys who actually have 381% over budget. So not a huge dollar amount, but not too good as far as a percentage. So I can sort and display and filter this data in any way that I want. Over to the right here, we have additional information. We have Power BI, and Power BI is basically a view of the data that is a graphical format. And this is useful for just looking at your data at a quick glance and seeing what is my total, what is my budget. If I want to drill into it, I can click here and it'll open it up in another window, and I can start slicing and dicing the data like I want to look at. So here's my expense analysis. I'm currently looking at it in a bar chart, but I can change that. Here at the bottom, I have some other pretty stuff. Now I have another total expenses by year for category. So if I say I'm kind of interested in this interest, why is there 1.5 million of interest? I can click there, and I can look and see that my other associated graphs are changing, and they're very dynamic as I click through it. So I can click here, I can click here, and it'll show me the details related to the section that I'm on. So I can slice and dice my data in any way that I need and make it pretty for the people that want to see it in a more user-friendly format. So as we go over to the right, we have these things called links. Links actually take you again to other parts of the system. So in this case, I'm in Ledger, Budget, and Forecast. So it says these are the things that are actually related to budgeting and to forecasting. So I can actually look at my budget control. I can look at my actual versus budget, and I can keep going down, and it even brings up some of the setup items that are related. So all the workspaces have this general format and make it user-friendly so that individuals can complete their tasks in an easier format. And it uses the Office type interface, so there's not a lot of learning as far as navigation and such. All right, so what I want to show, since we're in the general ledger area, we're going to talk a little bit about the financial reporting. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go to a trial balance. So when you think of a trial balance, it's basically just a listing of your debits and credits. And you can see that I'm using the same financial dimension sets over here that I was using in my budget and actual calculations. So here, I can see any of the data and I can expand. I can change it to fund, main account, division, etc. And I can also, from here, drill down into what I need. So a trial balance is really not a report anymore. It's an inquiry. If I really wanted to print it, I could absolutely print it. But it's really an inquiry and a way of finding out more information. So let's say I really only care about accounts that start with a 6. So I'm going to say anything that starts with a 6 or has a 6 in it. I hit enter, and now you can see that I have only the main accounts that start with a 6. So I can slice and dice that way as well. So let's say I want to see something about group insurance. I can highlight, and now my link is open, and it's going to show me all the debits and credits that hit that account for that period. All right, so trial balances are very cool to be able to analyze your data and to see what's going on from an accountant standpoint and from a user management standpoint. So let's talk now about the actual financial reports. So we have a financial report writer where I've generated a couple of budget funds available reports. And in this case, when we view the report, the latest report that was generated, I can see a summary level of where I'm at as far as my budget funds available. So I've put in the budget, revisions, any actuals obviously come in. And then I'm also putting in the information about my encumbrances and my pre-encumbrances. So it's a very long report, but when I scroll way over to the right, I can see the total budget funds available for this summary level. Now let's say that, sorry, I'm making probably everyone dizzy. So let's say that I'm drilling back. I see the $16 million and I want to see what it was. I can click here and it tells me, okay, now it's telling me that it's human resources finance. Well, I want to see what this 4.3 million is. So I'm going to click here. And as I'm looking, I can continue to drill down into the details, and I can actually keep going. So I'm going to click information technology. And I'm going to see as I go over to the right that they spent $14,000 on supplies. So let me drill that. So now I get to a decision point. I can either drill to the report or I can actually open it within the application. And when I do that, I'm actually looking at the individual transactions that hit this combination of accounts. So, and I can even go further and go to the original document. I can look at the purchase order or I can look at the invoice. So you can start at a high-level financial statement and continue to drill down until you see the original point of entry and the original document that was created. So I'm going to close all these until I get to my main one. And here I am at the summary level screen. I also have the capability of something called a reporting tree. And this reporting tree can be built off of a custom reporting tree, but it can also be built off of your organizational hierarchy. So in this case, I've got the city of Maple, and I also have, let's say, I want to see just finance. When I click on that, now my report has technically changed, and now I am actually only looking at the finance information. If I want to see anything under finance, I can look at just accounting, for example. And what it does is it filters that data for just the tree structure that I'm looking at. So I can continue to drill down. I can create this organizational chart in the application, and then I can use it through the financial reporting. So I've basically effectively created, I don't know, 30 reports here by just creating the tree. And now I can see this report for every single department. Obviously, I have the option to print. I can export to Excel, and I can do a lot of additional items throughout the financial reporting. Let me click close. I'll close one more time and get back to our main page a couple more times. So I'm back at the home page, and I'm going to do a vendor invoice. I've received it, and I'm looking at it on my desktop, and I'm ready to enter it. So I'm going to go to vendor invoice entry. So I'm an AP person, and I want to see things that are out there. So what I care about, I've got a purchase order number on this invoice. And so I'm going to look for my purchase order, or if I don't know the purchase order, I can just look for the name, and then I can go and check and see if the status has been received. So Microsoft Dynamics uses a three-way match, or gives you the option to use a three-way match. So I can do an open order, obviously. Then the next step is usually receiving the goods or services, and then finally you create the invoice, which is what we're going to do right now. So we have a vendor named Office Supplies. Not very realistic, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to click on Invoice Now, and we're going to create an invoice for this one. So we know it's been received, and we know that I've got the invoice in front of me, and I'm going to create the invoice. So it actually went out. It took everything that was received on that purchase order, and it put it all in here. So everything passed. Everything's great. So now I actually have the document in front of me, but I also have scanned it in. So I'm going to click Attach, and that little paper clip allows you to attach information to this particular invoice. So let's say I have a document. I can say I want a file, and I'm going to add the information here. So I'm going to browse it from my computer, and I've got an invoice here. So let's just do that one. And once it's attached, I can actually see a preview of it. So this is my invoice template that I have. In addition, I'm going to add a note. So I can also add a note and say, need to pay ASAP. Or if there was any kind of issues during the invoice processing, I can put it in here as well. So I can save that, and I can add additional information if I need to. So I'm going to close out of here, and now I have my attachments. Now I think I'm ready. Oh, I need an invoice number. So one of the required fields, as you would expect, is an invoice number. So I have everything filled out. I'm just going to submit it to Workflow. And now it's going to go to my department supervisor or whoever is next in line after I've created the workflow. So I'm going to hit Submit. And now I'm done here, so I'm not going to go and do anything more. Now, if I wanted to, I could actually continue on and identify other ones that are received as well, and then continue to process. So I'm going to close out of here. And actually, I'm going to show the invoice workflow. Now, what I've done is I've created a very, very simple workflow. And that workflow is already open here. So let me know. Are you able to see, I hope? I have a whole bunch of options here on the left. So what I've done is I've said, okay, we're going to start, we're going to approve, we're going to end. I can use this approval process. I can have multiple approval processes. I can drag another one over if I needed to. And I can create all the information around it. I can do automated policy rules, and I can put that in before I actually send it to approval. And then I can also auto-post it. If it's gone through the approval process, do I need to have someone post it, or do I want to auto-approve and auto-post that process? So I'm going to cancel so that I don't accidentally save this. It says it's unsaved. That's correct. So it's going to use the workflow that I currently have active, and it's going to process. And what it should be doing, and let's go look and see the pending vendor invoices. Let's look at the ones assigned to me. So this one is the one I just created, and my workflow is in complete violation of all best practices assigned to me. So I submitted the invoice and I assigned it to myself. So now if I want to approve it, I can click on the workflow and it'll ask me if I want to approve, reject, and then I have other options as well. Right now I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to go and show the workflow and the approval process at the end when we talk about the mobile devices. All right, so let me close out of here. And we've talked about some of the processes that are created here. So we see that we've got employee self-service. So an individual can actually click here and it shows everything that's assigned to that employee. So I have HR items. I have these work items that are assigned to me. So I can see that there are 2 assigned to me. If I'm using expense management or I'm doing projects, I can see if I have timesheets that I need to do or if I have courses for HR, or I can see if there's any expenses that I need to be created. All right. I should put my picture in. Seems to be everywhere else. So back here, I'm also going to show one of the processes that a lot of governments and even commercial entities have a problem with is the month-end close. So I'm in the process of creating my month-end close. It's usually a spreadsheet or a Word document that has a whole bunch of details. And they pass it around, and then they say I did task 3, task 4, and task 5. So what we have here is actually not just a checklist, but it's more than that. So when I click Show Details, I can see that I've done this May close, so it's June 6th, and we want to finish up our May closing. So here on the right, I have all of the tasks that need to be done, and you can see that some are past due. So 6, 7, all these due dates that are red are past due. If I want to actually do any of these processes, instead of just trying to figure out where I need to go, I'm actually going to click here, and I can drill back, and it'll open that window for me. So in this case, I've got a customer to ledger reconciliation. I want to do it for May, and I want to do it on the screen. Now, I'm not going to include details, but I could if I wanted to. I'm going to click OK, and what I'm doing is validating that my general ledger and my subledger are in balance. So I run this report, and it says that my customer balance is $416,000 and my ledger balance is $416,000. So I'm good. I can either export it and save it for my month-end processing, or I can just close now that I know it's good, and I can mark this task as completed. So as we go through the financial year-end or month-end process, although this does apply to year-end as well, I can actually select the items. So I'm not just telling you what you need to do, I'm showing you. I'm taking you to the link. So instead of just saying, how do I run allocations, or how do I do this, and let me add a bunch of information about how to do it, I click on it and it takes me right there. All right, then it shows 27 as past due. That's not probably a good thing to have. Definitely adjust those due dates. So if I don't know exactly how to do something and it's not in my fiscal end process, I want to ask the system, how do I do something? So let's say I'm AP, or I'm an accountant, or I'm an auditor, and I need to enter a vendor. So I'm going to ask the system how to do a vendor, and it's going to tell me. So I'm going to click Help. We're going to start there, and I'm just going to look for something that has the word vendor in it. Now normally you would have a whole lot more of these loaded because Microsoft out of the box comes with a lot, but I purposely limited it to these items. So I'm going to say, let's see, I want to know how to create a vendor account. That's what I've named it, and what I did is created a minimized version of creating a vendor. So I actually only have 10 steps in mine. I can see that I'm supposed to go here, I'm supposed to click there. Okay, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have it show me. So I'm going to click Start Task Guide. and it says, go to navigation pane, modules, accounts payable, all vendors. Okay, so I did that, and it's taking me to where it said I need to go. It does this little shaky thing, and then it says, okay, what do I need to do? I can click new. Now there is more information here if I needed to. I can skip this step. I can do adjustments as I'm going, so it's very flexible. So I'm going to click new, and then it says now you have to type in a name. So, you know, since Petra's on the phone too, we're going to spell it right and just add Petra. And then it asks for a group. It says you need to select a group, and we'll just put other vendors in. Hopefully that will take us to the next one. Oh, it didn't like what I did. It wanted me to do some other things. It wanted me to create an address first. So I can go through and go record by record and add the information. Now you can see, I'm going to go ahead and stop the task guide. But you can see that Microsoft, as usual, has a lot of options. And I could add addresses, contacts, miscellaneous details, all of this information. So if I'm an end user and I have no idea what everything does, maybe I've just come on board, or maybe I haven't done it in a while, I would love to have this task guide to be able to guide me through the fields that I really need to fill out. So I've said, okay, we need to create an address. And then obviously for governments especially, you need, well, for everybody, you need to have 1099 information filled out. So it actually takes you down to the tax 1099, and it says, okay, you need to make sure that the W-9 is received. You can attach it using the attachment button. And it takes you through the fields that you need to fill out. Now we can actually add detail to this, and you can customize it in case you have additional information that needs to be done. But for every implementation, we actually have a list of certain standard operating items that will allow you to guide your company in the right direction and do what they need to do for their business. Right, so the task guide can be recorded. You can create custom ones. You can use the Microsoft out-of-the-box ones, or you can just use the help. All right. So as you would expect, Microsoft has a very integrated system. And you can actually integrate into Excel. I know, Microsoft, what a shocker. So we have Petra here, and we're going to, I guess, leave her there. That's fine. And we're going to open this in Excel. So what I want to show is that I'm just going to open it in Excel. Now it says download, so we're going to download it. Now I had two options when I did that. I had open, and then I had download. So what I want to show is that when I click open, and actually, let me drag this over so you can see it as it's processing. Here it is. So what I've done is it's connecting to the application, to Dynamics 365, and it's got this data connector. It's going through and retrieving all the information about what I said to open, and it brings it back here. If I need to make a change to something, City Power and Light Company or something like that, once I make those changes, I can click publish, and it'll publish it right back into Dynamics. So what I've done effectively is I've made Excel, which everybody knows, an input tool. And I can do this in multiple screens. So let's say I want to go ahead and publish. It might take a little bit, but I'm going to click publish, and it says it's publishing. And then in AX/Dynamics 365, I will get that consistent yet. It says it processed one change, and then it processed successful. So I don't really want to save this workbook, but I could. I could save this workbook, and then I can come in and make my changes and then publish again. So I'm not saving it, but I'm going to refresh the screen so that it can see it. And now it says at the top, City and Light Power and Light Company. So it took what I did in Excel, published it back, and now it's actually part of the vendor record. This obviously depends on security and depends on a lot of other things that you would want to make sure that a person is actually has security to be able to do this. If they didn't, they would get an error if they tried. All right. So I'm going to close out of here. And let's talk a little bit about the hierarchy designer. So I kind of want to show here our org hierarchy, and I don't have it in a favorite, so we're just going to go here to the big long menu and do a hierarchy. So right now I have a few different hierarchies. I have the City of Maple one, which has details and divisions and then departments. And if I want, I can click on View, and this is going to show me my org hierarchy in a designer fashion. So I have City of Maple, I have Finance. If I want to make Finance the center, I can click on it, and now it tells me that there's administration. I can drill back and drill down, and I can continue to see the hierarchy that I have. I can edit it and make changes, and when I do that, I basically change the dynamics of the organization. So I can make, let's say in September, we're going to take accounting and move it somewhere else, or we're going to take budgeting and move it under the mayor's office. You can move that and put an effective date, and now you've changed the picture for future reporting. So organization hierarchies are used for that. They're used for workflow, and they can be customized. Here in the budget planning area, I'm going to show my friend Brad. Brad is a budget planner. So we actually have a specific hierarchy for budget planning. And let's go to Brad. I've opened him up, so now I'm logged in as Brad. Brad, he doesn't have as much stuff as I do, but he does have budget planning. So let's go to budget planning and take a look at it. So as I mentioned, budget planning, Microsoft allows you to take your budget from the initial creation of a budget plan. So I've initially decided to start here, and then I can have as many different iterations of it as I want. So I can have a department request, a department approved, maybe I have to go 2 levels and I have to have a department and a division, or maybe the Parks Department requires additional input from someone else. I can set up my budget plan to aggregate and separate, and everyone can do their own budget plan, but then Microsoft will put it all together. So I'm going to show the hierarchy. And oh, by the way, it also uses workflow. So if I want to see what's been approved or what's going on with the workflow, I can see that I've got City Council at the top here. And in this view of the world, which is my budget planning view, I have the budget office at the top. So if I want to see anything from the budget office, I can look further. I can see the workflow. I can see that 1 department submitted, 3 divisions submitted, and then we have an adopted plan. I can also see the different scenarios or the different numbers that I've created. So the council proposed this, but then they adopted this. The department requested this. Wouldn't that be nice? Have a really low department request, but this shows the different stages that it went through, and it's all tracked, and it all integrates with Excel, and you can generate your plans via what everybody knows, which is Excel. So if I want to see what's going on with the budget, I can come into my budget planning workspace. Now I can actually look at budget plans. These are the milestones. I can look at budget plans, and I can also look at forecast positions. So if we look over here on the right, we can also see that we have the same thing. We have all the links to the budget processing. So I can set up and do all the different controls and such. So now I'm promised that I would show the actual mobile app. So what I'm going to do is connect my phone quickly. And then I will pull it over to the main screen. So I'm going to show briefly my screen. This is my screen. I've got a lot of stuff on it. So I'm going to go to Dynamics 365 for Operations. Now I've already logged in, so it's going to take me here, and if I want to refresh it, I can refresh it. We have a mobile app for vendor invoice approvers, and we have another one for customer viewer. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to see what invoices do I have to approve. and it says I've got 2. Now those are obviously the same 2 that I have in the system. So I want to see more details. Let's say I want to see the one about Ladybug. And it's refreshing and giving me all the information. It's 2100, and I want to see more details, and it looks good to me, so I'm going to click Approve. I can say Done, and it's going out and saving that one. Say I want to look at the other one. And this one, I have a lot of things on here, but I also have attachments. Remember we put those attachments on? I'm going to click Attachments. And I've got a note here, and I've also got a file. And I can open the file, and because of additional security my friends at Microsoft like to have, it's going to require me to put my password in. So I'm going to do the obvious little move it over so I can put my password in. So here I can actually, if I think it's going to be good, I can go back and I can then approve this as well. So on my actions. If I don't want to approve it, I can reject it, or I can request that a change be made. Maybe I don't like this amount, or maybe I looked at the GL distributions on this one and I see that they're wrong. So it's going through and validating them and saying, okay, this is 10166. It should be a different fund. It shouldn't be the general fund. So a lot of people like to put things to general funds. So this allows you to validate it before, even on a mobile app. All right. So now if I search through and I say Invoices to approve, I refresh this, I only have the one left because I already approved the other one. And it'll stay out there until I need it to. So on my mobile app while I'm here, let's show Power BI. So that Power BI that we had up is also available here. So I have one called, it's Financial Performance is what they named it. If I want to see anything like my total expenses that we saw earlier or our actual versus budget, I can see more details about it. And let's say that I think that something's really wrong here. If I don't like that, I can actually, or maybe I'll go back and look at this one. And I say that interest expense, why is that 7%? So I can do this annotate, and I can say, what? Why so high? And then I can circle it, although hopefully you're better at drawing. I can do a smiley face and do stickers and all kinds of fun stuff. And once I'm done saying, why is this so high, I really want to share it with someone who is going to fix it. So I'm going to send a mail, and I'm going to send it to Petra because she needs to fix this. I send it, and now she's going to take a look at it, and she'll be able to tell me why the interest expense is so high this year or for this fiscal period. All right, so Microsoft has the ability to do Power BI on the mobile, so you can quickly look at your data and analyze it. And it also has the ability to do workflow so that I can approve or deny any kind of items that are assigned to me. Now, in addition, I've created those 2 items, those workflow and the customer viewer. But in order to create a mobile app, it's very simple from a user's perspective. All I have to do is come here to Settings. Oh, I'm in Brad. Brad doesn't get to do that. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to click Settings. And now I have this mobile app option. So when I click mobile app, I see that I have 2. But I can create a new one. I can create one, and then I can select fields, and I can make my own mobile app that has the information in it that I need. So that's an overview of summary of Microsoft Dynamics 365 for operations and some details that we've talked about in some specific areas. Obviously, it's a very robust and full application, and there's a lot more that it can do, but hopefully this gives you an overview of the application itself. Thank you so much for attending. And Petra?
Great. Yep. Thank you, Shirley. We still have a couple of minutes, so as a reminder, you can still submit your questions through the questions pane in your attendee control panel. There were a few already submitted, so let's begin with those now. We have, is Dynamics 365 for Operations a public sector specific solution?
Yeah, and I know we covered a little bit of that, but basically it was originally, when it was written in the 1990s, it was not a public sector solution. But Microsoft took it on and made it its own and used a company called Tyler Technologies to help them to know what public sector needed. And they added that on. So a lot of this information of the encumbrance and the budget planning and things that are really important to the public sector were added about 5 or 6 years ago.
Great, thank you. All right, how does security work in the solution? Can you show us that?
Sure. Let me go to security. It's role-based. So I realize that this is a very big menu, so you can ignore all the extra stuff that's here. But there are things called roles, as there is with most systems. So I'm just going to show the actual roles. Actually, I'm going to show users, and then we can look at the roles that are assigned. So for example, I have Brad here, and Brad, as we know, has budget planning processing. So here, if you look at the bottom, we have budget clerk, budget manager, employee manager, etc. So the roles are predefined. So if I click assign roles, I can see a list of all the roles that exist in this application out of the box, and they can be used or they can be customized based on the needs of, the government. Okay.
Great, thank you. All right. At the beginning, you had that screen showing an item that was way over budget. Is there a way to alert or prevent that from happening?
Absolutely. So we talked about in the little circle of what operations is, there's a budget control process. So under budgeting, there's actually a configuration under budget control that allows you to control the processing based on whatever information you need. For example, if I have a grant, I probably want to control it at the grant level. I don't care about the individual lines. But maybe for some specific federal grants, I need to control it at the line level. So the budget control allows you to define what you need to prevent overspending in the proper areas.
Great, thank you. We have one last one that just came in. How much training is required to get you up to speed, and what software documentation is available?
Okay, so the software documentation is all online at this point. So we went to help, and I showed a little bit here of the task guides, and those come with the system, and then they can be customized for each organization. So if a government requires payment information or DUNS or some other information on a vendor, they can create their own, and it will automatically update. So the one thing about training documentation is it generally is printed, it's created, and it's beautiful, and we print it, and then after a few months it sits in a corner. It's a nice bookmark or book weight, and it doesn't actually do anything at that point, and people rarely refer back to the documentation at that point. So having it online makes it easier for the users. If you have new users, if you have somebody who hasn't done something in a while, they can actually search here and find the information they need to be able to do their job. So the training documentation these days is pretty much all online. You can obviously print things as well, but most of the time we like to see it online so that it can be dynamic.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm going to take over just so I can display our contact information here. That concludes the questions and the presentation today. Thank you again, Shirley, and thank you everyone on the line for attending today's webinar. Again, it was called How to Do More with Less, Efficiently Manage Your Government's Finances with Microsoft Dynamics 365. As I mentioned, you'll be receiving a follow-up email with a link to the recording of today's webinar in the next few business days. If you have any questions, please contact Shirley or I at the email addresses on your screen. That's Shirley Adams is at sadams@akaes.com. And I'm Petra Dennison, pdennison@akaes.com. On behalf of AKA, thank you again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.